All right, guys, welcome back to episode 4 of Within Tolerance. I'm joined by Dylan Jackson once again. And today we got a couple things to talk about. We got a couple messages from some viewers on our Instagram. Once again, if you haven't followed that, go to Instagram, Within Tolerance Podcast. Make sure you follow that. We're almost to 100 followers, which is pretty impressive for doing this for what, maybe a week or two now?
Yeah, I think we're at 2 weeks, and I think we just crossed 100 followers today. Yeah, we're at
Oh,
100
really?
right now. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So once again, thank you for all the support out there. But I did want to plug and mention this. If you guys are listening to the podcast, make sure you guys post on your stories and tag us, the Within Tolerance podcast, so we can repost it as well. Try to share it to one friend. That's all we're asking. It could really help us grow. And I think this podcast could reach a lot more people. And I think it'd just be great if you guys could share it. So without further ado, I guess you want to just jump into it?
Yeah, definitely. So, how was the last week? Seems like from your Instagram, you were doing a lot of business stuff, kind of getting your inventory in order and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I've been going through like all the Lego side of things. That's going really well. I want to say the word purge some of the older products. We kind of talked about that last episode, but I sold off. I did a couple sales, got rid of some older inventory, so that's good. Kind of cleaning house, making room for some new stuff. Um, and then I was messaging you today, and I was also talking to Nick. I got this one little titanium job that I'm quoting or looking at, and I'm actually really excited, and I hope I get it because I would really like to work with titanium a little bit more. I've worked with it a little bit in the past, mainly on like a lathe. I don't have a lathe now, but I think it'd be just really fun to try something and to kind of have that bragging right.
Yeah, totally. Titanium's fun. I mean, any new material it's always a little nerve wracking, getting up to that first cut, and then once you get through it, it's just that feeling of success is so addicting when it comes to machining.
I'm just worried about tool life. That's like my only concern here.
Is there a lot of tiny tools you need, or is it
It's
fairly
like I think I can get
basic?
away. I think I'm going to use a 1/4 inch for basically everything. I was going to use a 1/2 inch, but I figured let's keep the tooling costs down. And I mean, I could get a lot more 1/4 inch tools than a 1/2 inch. Um, and then I think an 1/8 inch tool just to do some tiny slots, but it's not that big of a deal. But there's one hole that's kind of like oblong shaped. It's not an, I can't just drill it, but I might have to pre-drill it to rough out the center of the hole and then come in with like a small 1/8 inch tool to, open that up. So that's like the only thing I'm worried about. And then there's some surfacing and chamfering, but that should be pretty easy.
Yeah, I think you got this.
Yeah.
Are you going to go helical?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Helical or Nick over at Full Throttle mentioned Lakeshore Carbide he really likes.
Yeah. I think I've used like one of their end mills once, but I've been really impressed with helical lately. I love their speeds and feed app, and it makes it just so easy.
Yeah, I've used, like I said, or like you said, I think 2 or 3 tools from Lakeshore Carbide. I think the problem I remember is their shipping was just so expensive, um, and that was kind of annoying. And then, like you said, Helical, I use all their stuff for aluminum. And after talking to you on the podcast, and then also who was it? Oh, it was the guy that stopped by Machinist Life. He was talking to me about Harvey and Micro 100, and he was basically preaching exactly what you were saying, that I should really look into them for my mold making.
Oh yeah. For any kind of small stuff, it's really hard to beat them from any specific manufacturer. Like you can kind of piece together their catalog from a whole lot of different people, but they just have everything under one roof, which is really nice, and good speeds and feeds and good customer service. Like that plastic job I had, since it was filled with some odd stuff, I called them up and had them kind of advise me on what tools would cut it best and speeds and feeds and all of that, and they were super super helpful.
Okay, that's good to know. I might have to just call them and try to find the right person and kind of pick their brain.
Yeah. I mean, it's worth a call. Like they answer really quickly, and it seems like they know what they're talking about. So
Yeah, that's good. So, how's your job shop life been? I know you were quoting like you said like 7 or 12 unique parts.
yeah, so we are on track to do back to back best months ever this
Oh,
month.
really?
Yeah, it's been insane. The last month was really busy. like I told you about. And then this month, it's one of those things where when it rains, it pours. And like we had one big order come in, and then the same day I had a bunch of different customers call us and email us and say, hey, can you do this and this and this? And so we've just been quoting like crazy and seemingly getting most of it, if not all of it.
So when you do your quoting, are you doing the quoting or is your buddy doing the quoting, your partner?
I do pretty much all of it, unless it's a
Okay.
customer that he brings in and that he's the point of contact for. Otherwise, I do it.
And so with your quoting, because this I find fascinating because we all have our kind of different. It's really just best guess is kind of what it comes down to. Like we talked about, I think on episode 1 or 2, as far as like thinking through the whole process and accounting for your time. But do you have like a spreadsheet you go through, or do you just kind of make a list?
Yeah, so I have a spreadsheet that I got from a coworker. I don't know, years ago, 5 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
That you can put in your material costs and it marks up the material. You put in your programming time, all of your setup times and run times for every op, how many parts you're making, your shop rate, any kind of outside processes, any kind of hardware, inspection time, all of that stuff, and it adds it all up, calculates it out, price per part, and then I use that more to inform the quote more that rather than like go buy it every time, because sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I'll put in what I think my times are going to be and look at it, and I'm like, "There's no way that this customer is going to pay this."
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly right. That's the part we were kind of mentioning earlier. You got to feel them out a little bit.
yeah, and then I mean, just as much that as sometimes I'll put stuff in and look at the part price, and I'm like, it's worth way more than that. Like
Yeah.
I must have fudged a number somewhere wrongly, or a lot of it's that plus what I know about the customer plus whatever timeline they're looking at. Like a lot of our jobs that we've been quoting lately are real quick turnaround or relatively quick for how big they are,
Yeah.
and so that always commands a premium.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, how do you calculate that, right?
Again, just kind of it depends on the customer, depends on the
Yeah.
timeline, all of that. Like we had an order, one of the orders we just won. They they didn't say that they needed it quickly when they sent for the first RFQ, and so I sent them back a quote, and it was like 3 weeks or something like that. And she wrote back like immediately and said, "Hey, can you do it in 2 weeks? We're willing to pay more if we can get it in 2 weeks." And so I had to go back and mark everything up and then sent it back.
Okay.
But it like you said, it's kind of an educated guess game,
Yeah.
knowing what the customer, knowing their past part price history and things like that.
Yeah. That's what I'm learning with especially this titanium. I mean, honestly, for what it is, this piece that I'm quoting, it's a small quantity, but I've never bought titanium, and I'm going through, or at least I'm getting prices through TMS titanium, and then, I mean, it's only like $15 a piece, but it's a small piece, so I've never dealt with that. I mean, the other larger jobs, that big aluminum part, I mean, I think that big, I think it's like 1 inch by 6 inches by 10 inches. That's, I think, only $15, $13. So it's kind of the highest. That sounds high, or that sounds low to some people, only $15. But for me, that's like a kind of a big deal. Because I'm used to dealing with, my material being like under $1, like, a small piece of aluminum or Delrin or something like that.
Right. Yeah, no, well, especially titanium recently, from what I've heard, has gone up significantly in price.
Yeah.
And aluminum's usually 3, 4, $5 a pound, and I think titanium's double that, if not more than
Really.
that. Yeah, it's. I mean, it's there are nowhere near the amount of places that produce titanium as there are that produce aluminum.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm willing to bet, and I'm assuming that some of that has to do with like the whole tariffs and all that that's going on with the US.
I think some of it, like we've actually seen domestic material, equal to or less than import material now because of that.
Okay.
Which I'm paying more overall, but I'd much rather get domestic material than import material. So it
Oh,
makes
yeah.
makes that choice a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely.
But
Well, if
yeah,
you
so things are going well. Things are busy. Still haven't had a chance to hook up those lights in the brother because the brother has been making parts pretty
That's
much all
good though.
weekend. And yeah, it's a good problem to have. Being that busy is really good. I was at the shop doing two different orders, like rush orders last night. One was because I had put a job off to put another machine or put another job in the machine, and then another one was a local brewery had contacted us because I guess they had a sight glass in one of their pieces of equipment break, and the
Okay.
replacement coming from Chicago was 2 weeks out, and so they needed just a stainless steel 316 blank to put in there.
Is that
And
what
so
you posted on Instagram?
yeah, so that was the
Okay.
first time our new to us brother had been cutting 316, which was fun to get to play around with. It's definitely a lighter duty machine, and so to be able to still get a 316 part done, and it came in spec and looked great, and that was really really nice.
That's good. Did it handle the material and all that well, being such a small taper and all that?
Yeah. I mean, you got to do light cuts, and it's fairly slow. But I was using, I don't know, I think 90% the feeds and speeds I used in the Kitamura the last time we cut
Okay.
316. So it still handled it. I think I backed off the radial step over a little bit, but yeah, it cut it fine. And I was making parts in the other machine that had a longer cycle time, so it made sense to just load it up in the brother and have it just sit there and hog while I was waiting on the other machine for cycle times.
Yeah. Now, are either of your machines dual contact or are they not?
No, they're not.
Okay. I
I
was
would
going to
love it,
ask you
but
that.
they're not.
Yeah. 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 Because I remember seeing some of those robo drills at IMTS, and I remember there's a guy behind me looking in the machine, and he asked the guy, he's like, "Is that aluminum?" He's like, "No, that's 4140." And they were just hogging on some 4140, and I was really impressed with that little 30 taper.
Yeah, I think dual contact is supposed to be around 30 or 40% increase in rigidity over
Yeah,
a
I can
standard
see that.
taper.
Yeah.
So one of our customers, um, we helped them, or they bought a S700, and we kind of helped them get off the ground with it. And they got a dual contact spindle, and they seem to love it so far.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to, we can switch things up. And we got a message asking about more or less the two machines, or for you, two machines, for me, one machine that we picked out, kind of how we got started. Um, just, they also mentioned it's like the spaces that we're in. We're both in different scenarios here, right? Because I'm in a garage, you're in an actual, shop space that you rent and whatnot. So if you want to go ahead and start kind of the backstory on the machine you got, how you got it, where you found it, just everything that you can, really.
Yeah, sure. So first off, the questions from Hermit Shed on Instagram, John Working. Thanks for writing in. And the question was, yeah, uh, he wanted us to talk about the process each of us went through to pick machines and the spaces that we're in now. There's a lot of guys out there who want a side gig or to quit their jobs and run parts of their own, and you think that it'd be good to inform kind of how we got there in our route. So yeah, for me, but like I had said, me and Brad were both working at shops and just wanted to start our own shop. Really, it started as a joke. We were in class together and just kind of joking, like, well, we should get a machine. And then, that turned into, in our breaks at class, we would be looking on Craigslist and just see what's out there. And there was a robo drill, like a 98 or 97, real early robo drill that had popped up in Phoenix for super cheap because it had lost its parameters and the guy didn't know how to put it back together. And so we saw it and kind of went back and forth over a day and said, well, we should just do it. I mean, it's cheap enough. Worst case, we'll fix it and resell it. Because I've put parameters back in a million Fanic machines.
Okay.
I wasn't worried about it. And so we called the guy, didn't hear anything back, emailed him. And then a day later, he called us back and said, hey, machine's been sold. And so we were like super bummed.
Yeah.
And it was in that moment where we were like, oh, we really want to do this. Like, it's not a joke. We both want a machine and we want to start a machine shop.
That's a good way to look at it, right? You guys are kind of disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, it was the incentive was like, wow, if we're this disappointed, clearly that we knew what the outcome was or what outcome we wanted. And so that turned into, I think we were looking for about a month on Craigslist, and a local shop had an ad up that was like, terrible Craigslist ad, had a million pictures, a million different machines that they were selling, everything from our Kitamura to maintenance equipment to proto tracks to a whole bunch of stuff. They're one of the bigger shops in town, and they were just clearing house for a bunch of new machines. And I saw Kitamura, and the first shop that I worked in had, I want to say 11. I think I said a different number the first episode, but I feel like it was 11 or 12 or something like that. And they were all Kitamuras. I had been working on them for years. I knew how bulletproof they were. And so Brad and I went to go look at it, and they wanted next to nothing for it. Like I guess they had a deal going for it, and the guy backed out. And so they were just getting rid of it at not scrap price, but like almost scrap price. And they were there. That shop is almost entirely Haas, almost entirely 40 taper. So this was a Yaznak control 30 taper, just like super bastard machine for them. And they just wanted it gone. And we went and looked at it. I didn't have any Yaznak experience. Neither did Brad, but we found out doing some research that all the Yaznak manuals are online for free. And Yaskawa, who bought all the Yaznak back stuff, still does service on all the boards and free phone service. And so, I could preach to Brad how great the Kitamura iron was, and we just, took the plunge, and we've actually bought the machine before we found a shop for it, and then spent the next 2 weeks just searching through Craigslist and classifieds and all that stuff for shop space, and ended up finding our shop space, which is about 1,000 square feet, swamp cooled, which isn't great for the summers in Arizona, but it is what it is. Really low overhead, and it fit our machine. Had 100 amps of 3-phase, and we pulled the trigger and moved it in, and that's kind of where we've been.
And then the brother you had got semi recently, correct?
Yeah, so we got the brother in, I want to say September, October. It was right around IMTS.
Oh, really? So that's about the same time I got my machine then.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so Dennis Rathai, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name right, but he posted on Instagram that he had a brother for sale, looked really clean. I'd seen his page for a long time, so I know they take care of their machines, and the price was right. We both had been wanting to get into a brother. Like, I think our next machine will be a brother. And
like a brand new one, you said? Because you had talked about you really wanted warranty.
Yeah, we want a warranty. Now that I've dealt with the Yamazin techs and their whole service and everybody there, they are fantastic. Like, they will drop everything to help you out, and I really like the machines. I like the control. So it at that point I didn't really know much about the control. We have one at work, but I hadn't played on it that much. And yeah, the price was right. It just kind of worked out. Like, it was a 30 taper also, so we could use all the same tools, just different pull studs. We knew we could upgrade the memory board so that we could DNC any larger programs and run it off a USB. And yeah, it all worked out, and we got that delivered. Yeah, I want to say it was October, and it took us a little while to get it wired up and actually working for us. But now, it just cranks out parts, and they are just dead nuts too. Like,
just a good little workhorse.
Yeah. The larger pieces of stock that I posted on my Instagram earlier in the week, both of them, I put them in the machine, hit the green button, 0 comps on any tools, and parts came out perfect, within 5/10 of nominal on every single dimension.
That's so satisfying when you can do that. I love that feeling.
Yeah, it was super nice, and it's so stupid fast. Like, even being as old as it is, and it's not the servo turret where, it jumps right to the tool, it clicks through each tool.
Yeah.
It's still, I don't know, 50-60% faster than our Kitamura.
I don't think I've seen a video. I've seen a video of it doing a tool change. I don't think I've seen a video of it like rapiding around.
It's ridiculously fast. I think it has the same rapids as our Kitamura, but like with the G100 tool change, where it changes tools, applies the height offset, goes to the next X, Y, Z, all in one line of code and all at the same time. It just, every little thing on it is optimized for speed, and it's just so damn quick. It's a little scary sometimes.
Yeah, that's one thing I remember when I got my machine hooked up and I had posted some videos of it doing tool changes that I thought were fast. And you could rewatch it, and I was kind of bummed because I was like, all the brother guys were like, well, you could see the table moved before it started to, Z wrap it, or like all these things. And it's true though, like brother, I mean, it's those little things, but even my Haas, like it has to read all those lines of code separately, and it just takes however much longer. It's not much, but it's still there.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said, it's definitely not much, but those little pauses definitely add up when you've got 100 parts or 60 parts or whatever. It's those little things that eat into your time and eat into your profit.
Yeah. So I really envy you having two spindles.
Yeah.
I would
Well, and
love to
really,
have two.
that was really the big push to get the brother. Like the brother just happened to be the right machine at the right time, like the right price.
Yep.
And it fit what we had wanted. Like it needed to be small. We don't have that much power left, three-phase wise. So it kind of fit the pocket that we needed. But the big thing was we needed a second spindle because, as you know, as a small shop with one spindle, like you just sit there and twiddle your thumbs sometimes while you're waiting for
Yep.
stuff. You're like, everything's programmed. I've set up all the tools for the next op. I've cleaned the floors 3 times, and I'm
Yep.
still waiting for the tools, to finish cutting. And like now, like last night, I think I had a 15-minute cycle time on the one part, and in that time, I was able to set up both tools on the brother, touch them off, touch everything off. Set my G54, start cutting. Then the part finished on the kitty. I ran over, changed it over, and then ran, all of op one on the brother. Was able to load soft jaws, pick those up, then change parts on the kitty again, and like within 3 parts, I had my entire plug for the brewery done on the brother.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was super satisfying, and like it's those kind of nights where I've got both machines running that it's awesome. It's so
Yeah.
nice.
Are you doing any longer cycle times, like when you leave the shop? Because you leave pretty late sometimes, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. So I don't get off work till 5, and then I'm
Okay.
usually there depending on the workload, 5 to 11, 5 to midnight, 5 to 1. It really just depends on what I've got to get done.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be nice. That's the thing, right? Because if you don't have probing on either of your machines, so the whole
Unfortunately, not.
yeah, the process reliability, if you were trying to do like a little night run or something, um, it'd be nice to have that.
Yeah. Well, and most of our work doesn't really support that kind of workflow anyway. Like last
Yeah.
night, it was one part of one part number, and then the other parts that I was running was 3 parts, 3 different ops, 2 sets of soft jaws. So it
Okay.
was what 5 different operations I had to program and set up and run.
Okay.
So like the probing would have made those go faster, but there was nothing that I could like leave unattended.
Yeah. Now, for those like one-off parts and whatnot, I know the answer for me, but let's say it's out of steel or whatever, stainless, do you do a setup part in, let's say, aluminum, or do you just go for it? Like, do you order, I've talked to you about this. If I get an order for 25 of a part and let's say material's super cheap, I just might round up to 30, if it's only $5 more for material, it's worth it. I'm learning. I'm bound to screw something up, right? Do you put in any buffers with all that stuff?
So if it's aluminum, unless it's like a giant piece, I usually buy 10% extra.
10%? Okay.
And I round down. So like 25 pieces, I'll buy an extra two.
Yeah.
Or 20, even like the parts we were running. Yeah, the parts we were running this last weekend were 27 pieces, and I bought two extra. And that's usually more than enough to get me through. And then usually if I have, not usually, sometimes I save those parts, especially if they're anodized parts, and I just keep them in a drawer that I have, good parts marked on,
Yeah.
because customers come back and reorder them, and I've already got some on hand. Like the job I just picked up that's due in a couple weeks, I have quantities 64, 64, and 32.
Oh,
And
wow.
one of the 64 parts, I already have 6 of them done because I made a whole bunch of them extra last time. Like they gave me I had bought 10% extra, and then they gave me the drop on the bar that I ended up just cutting up and making into parts anyway.
Okay.
And so I've got 6 of them done, already anodized, good to go.
That's good. That's what I have one repeat job for some molded parts, and I found, you can kind of tell their production schedule. And recently, he was just like, just make me 1,000 of them, and I'm like, okay. And luckily, I had a bag of 500 already done, so the turnaround time was like a day versus like a week, and I was able just to ship them and make him super happy. And then I'll just, in my downtime, just make some more because I know he's gonna buy more. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a gamble, but especially with like aluminum parts or extra parts. Unless you've got really long cycle times, it's a cheap gamble. And worst case, you've got a couple extra parts to throw on your show off shelf or something like that.
exactly. Yep. That's a good way to put it. So I guess if I want to jump in here and quickly explain my story. So a little bit different. I don't have shop space. I wish I did. I only have one machine. I wish I had two. Um, I wish I had a quote employee. I don't. But basically, so back up, I started with the Tag, the desktop machine, as I talked about in a couple episodes ago. And I needed an upgrade, and I had been saving for a very long time. And that's the one thing that we could talk about in later episodes if people are interested. But the whole financial aspect of it, I bought my machine in cash because I did not want to, you know, have it sit for, let's say, even a day, but let alone a week or 2 weeks, and be stressing out that, like, I got to be making X amount of dollars a day. Otherwise, I'm kind of screwed. And I did
Right.
not want that. And it got to a point maybe a year ago where it was like I could buy this and only have to finance, $20,000 or $10,000. And I was like, you know what? Stop. Just save for another year or 6 months. Just, seal the deal and be done with it all in one. Just be patient. You'll get it. Don't worry about it. So that's what I did.
Damn,
And
dude, that's
yeah,
awesome. I had just assumed you would finance it because most kids your age barely have money for lunch or like to go out with friends, let alone a machine.
oh
So
yeah,
clearly,
no,
clearly you're doing your business well, and you know what you're doing. That's awesome, man.
I
Congrats.
appreciate it. Yeah, that's one thing that I'm very fortunate about is early on I was taught by some of my family members investing in stocks and whatnot, and luckily Amazon stock did pretty well at the time, and I cashed out on that, and then a couple other stocks. But just being smart with your money is huge, especially if you just have money sitting in the bank. Definitely have it in investments. Split your money up, but that's a whole nother subject. But anyways, got the machine. So let's back up actually. IMTS. I went there, and the main machines I was looking at was either a Brother, a Robo Drill, or a Haas. And they were all great candidates. The Haas really had me simply because I'd been running them for the past 2 years in school. And I really wanted to just be able to get the machine and hop on the control, know how to set tool length offsets, know how to navigate, as much as I knew in school, and not have to sit there, text people, email, or call people. And, in hindsight, either of those, really all those machines would have suited me well. And then it also came down to price. Obviously, the Haas, I think, honestly, I don't know. I'd have to price out a Brother now, but Robo Drills are kind of expensive, brand new, is what I remember.
Yeah,
Brother,
that can be for sure.
yeah. Brother, I think probably is a little bit, just not much more than what I paid for mine. But I bought mine after IMTS. I really was looking at it closely at IMTS. And that was a big thing for me, is the power and space, because I'm out of a garage. So height wise, the DM2, which is what I have, was able to fit. The concern was the power consumption. Haas's website at the time said, I think, 70 to 80 amps. Like every source was saying that. My HFO was saying that. And I was at IMTS, and I asked one of the apps guy, and I'm like, what is the amperage of this machine? And he's like, oh, it's 70 amps or 80, whatever it was. And I asked another guy, and they were all saying that. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna walk behind the machine. I probably shouldn't have, but I'm glad I did, because I was like, it says 17 amps right on the back of the machine. And I
Does it
go up
really?
and I grabbed one of the guys, and I'm like, I asked him again. I'm like, how much does this use? He's like 80 amps. I'm like, well, the back of the machine says 17. And he's like, wait, really? And like none of them knew that. And I'm like, the amount, I don't even know the amount of sales you guys were missing out on for like garage shops telling them it's 80 amps.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean that's not even like a slight mistake. That is a
no.
whole different ballpark.
Yeah, and I think that's because they are so used to like a VF2, which is that because it's a 30 horsepower
So
versus
yours is Cat 40, but how many horsepower is it? 20?
15.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes more sense then, because yeah, like the brothers are all 30 amps, but
Okay.
I think they're right around 15 as well.
Is how many amps is yours?
Mine's a 30 amp. I think
Okay.
they pretty much are all 30 amps from what I understand.
Okay. But yeah, so I found that out and I was just like, hold on, like this is a whole new ball game because I have I think it's a 65 amp phase converter. So like I could run like four of those things, and I was like, okay, it's game time now. So that kind of sealed the deal with the Haas, knowing that okay, power's not an issue. The height, my HFO said, we might have to take some way covers and maybe the cables off or whatnot. But when they showed up, like they had like 2 inches of clearance on the top, which was plenty. So they just, scooted it on in and we were good to go. But
Wow.
yeah, that was another thing is I had to sell 2 manual lathes to get space and then some more money. But other than that, I mean, luckily I have a dead flat driveway. There's just a curb to the street and yeah, it was pretty seamless other than that. I mean, we could definitely go more in depth on the concept of getting out of your day job and doing this as a side gig. I think that would be kind of a fun episode because I know there's a lot and a lot of people that are kind of in that position. Um,
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm still in that position. I work
yeah, right.
a day
So
job and this, so
yeah,
I,
and
I I would love to know how to get out of my day job. Actually, no, I really love my day job, but it does get a little tough sometimes doing both.
yeah, that's the thing because you're in a position. You're similar to one of my buddies. Is that you love your day job so much and it's machining related, but you have a side gig that's machining related, and you really want to pursue that. And especially with you, it sounds like you're getting really busy.
Yeah, we're starting to. I think if we have, I feel like if we had 6 more months of how we're doing this month and last month, I would be hard pressed to not, you know, start my transition.
Really,
Yeah, we'll see. I think I told you, like my goal is to afford a new machine before I step away from my day job.
yeah,
Because right now, both of our machine, like the brother, we can get service for, which is really nice, but it is older. It is, not likely to break down, but like anything that's old can break down. Whereas, not that new machines don't have issues, but it would be
yeah,
nice to have a new machine with a warranty that we can count on, and be able to make parts on at least one of three machines, no matter what. Because I've been in the position before when we had just one machine where we've had some weird issues, not weird, but bigger issues with the kitty that have taken us down for a few weeks or a
oh
month at
geez,
one point. Yeah, so it going through that and feeling that stress of like having to call customers and be like, hey, I've got no way of making your parts in the time we said, it
that
just
yeah,
sucks.
yeah, and knowing that that could happen at any time.
Right. And granted, we've done a lot of preventative maintenance on both machines to try to mitigate that kind of stuff. But you never know. Like the big thing that happened to the kitty is we had, I think it was capacitors that went bad on the main memory board on the machine. And so it would boot up and run for 15, 20 minutes, maybe a few hours, and then all of a sudden go into like a more or less the Yaznak version of the blue screen of death.
Okay,
And so it would do that, and then it got worse and worse and worse, and then we sent it off to a third-party repair place that reflowed the board and said it was good, and it worked for a few months then, and then it started doing it again, and so finally we bit the bullet and just sent it back to uh, Yaskawa, and it was not cheap, but they got it fixed, and there was I think we had a year warranty on it, and it has been working flawlessly since then.
yeah. So I would you think you'd go for another like a brother, like a brand new one to keep kind of the 30 taper lineup?
Yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at. Like
Okay.
the big two big machines we have, well, maybe three big machines we've been weighing back and forth on are the M140 from Brother, just because that would add 5 axis
Oh,
and
that's
some
right.
smaller lathe capabilities to the shop, which would be fantastic. Maybe just an S700 or S1000 from Brother also, but
Okay.
with a fourth axis, or on the other side of the spectrum, we've also looked a lot at the Akuma Genos M560V or their 5 axis if we had had the work and the money for that.
Yeah. And that's the thing is if you can, I don't know your position, but try to save up for that. And if you could make that kind of a seamless transition, like, okay, boom, get a new machine, get it going. And then once you have that going and you have the work, then it's a lot easier to step away from the day job versus, having payments still. That could be a little bit stressful.
Yeah, yeah. No, Brad, my business partner, is absolutely fantastic with money, and I have gotten significantly better in adulthood.
Yeah.
And so neither of us wants payments. Neither of us wants to have to worry about that kind of stuff. I think, like you, well, you saved up for the entire machine. Like I would be okay financing the last 20 grand of it because I know I could make that back
Yeah.
very quickly with three machines. But we definitely don't want to be putting down the absolute bare minimum and then financing one through the life of it, because that's just stressful.
Yeah, for sure. And that's similar situation with me. I'd like a new machine. It was going to be the UMC 500, but not anymore. Uh, but I'd like a 5 axis. Like if I move shops or get an actual building or build a building, which is another subject we can talk about later because that's something I've been thinking and looking into, is I'd like to get a specifically a 5 axis if I were to make that jump and like have that already kind of planned out. Like, okay, boom, I have the shop space now. I got the power. I've got the space, everything. Okay, let's get some 5 axis and let's just go for it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the smart money is investing in 5 axis for sure. Like that's one reason we were looking at the M140 is that it's a control we already know. They're super cheap for a 4+1 machine. Super low entry point into the world of 5 axis. Plus, it has the turning capabilities, which is kind of cool. And we'll see. It only runs on a 30 amp breaker too, which is great. And they're very compact. They're a lot longer than they are wide when you're looking at them. So you can stack a few of them next to each other if you get the work for them.
Yeah, that'll be good. I totally spaced out that your Kinemura is a 30 taper. So if you could keep that consistent, that would be just awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we really like that machine. Like
Yeah.
it's very atypical for a 30 taper. Like it's a 12,000 pound 30 taper machine.
Jeez.
Yeah, but and it's just crazy rigid in comparison to a lot of 30 tapers out there because it's all boxways and it just really plows through some stuff. But all of my experience with the Brother machines so far, they're definitely it's hard to make up for the lack of mass with rigidity, but they really do a good job with their design of the frames and stuff. They cut really well.
That's awesome. Well, if you want, should we wrap it up there?
Yeah, sure.
So, guys, we are on. This is episode 4. If you guys haven't checked out the first 3 episodes, definitely check them out. Link in our Instagram bio to it's an RSS link. Is that correct?
Yeah, so if you take that RSS link, you can paste it in whatever your favorite podcast app is, and it'll pop up. We're trying to get on Apple. We're trying to get on a few other ones, but Anchor's kind of taking their sweet time to push those out.
Yeah, but we seriously appreciate all the guys that are. I haven't checked the analytics of where they're listening on what platforms, but I appreciate it. We've got, I think it's 175 views throughout the last 3 podcast episodes. So that's awesome. It says we have like an estimated audience around 70 people, which is kind of crazy for how, quickly that, what, 2 weeks you said? I think it was. Yeah, 2 weeks
Yeah,
And
2 or 3 weeks, and
yeah,
we
that's
definitely appreciate it. You know,
yeah.
I never
I
thought
think
that I'd have even 10 people listening to us talk, let alone 70. So
yeah, I'm really stoked and I'm really excited. And we're working on getting some special guests on here, and that will be awesome. And feel free to shoot us a message either on either of our personal accounts or on the Within Tolerance podcast Instagram account. We both share that. So we're both bouncing in between that, answering people and whatnot. But if you have any suggestions on what you want to hear our thoughts on, any talking points, let us know. That'll definitely give us some things to talk about in future episodes. And
yeah, or if you want to join us, you know, we're more
yeah,
than happy to have somebody with a different viewpoint come on and educate us on something different. I love hearing about all different sides of the business, and I was listening to uh, Lathe Night podcast, which is
okay.
another new one, and like one of them was talking about a machine that he'd worked on that was a honing machine, but it was for tubing, and it was, I can't remember how, it was like 30 feet long or something. Like
Oh,
I
jeez.
didn't even realize that machines like that existed.
Wow.
And so it's always just really cool hearing how wide of a variety of people and experience and all that there is in this trade.
Yeah. So if we could get some cool people like that on there, that would be, or on here, that'd be awesome. So once again, just shoot us a message. It'd probably be easier just to keep it on the Within Tolerance Instagram. But other than that, thank you guys for the support. Once again, make sure you guys share on your stories or even post about us. That'd be awesome. But I know stories is kind of the new thing. So tag us on that. We'll repost it and we can just get some more people directed this way. That would be great. And other than that, we will see you guys in the next episode.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.